right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our second installment of a webinar series for the roadmap and shortcut. So today we're going to be talking about building your roadmap to share vision, progress, and focus here in Shortcut. And before we dig into that, let's start with intros for the two folks who are hosting this webinar. So I'm Sam. I'm a senior product manager here at Shortcut, and I've been with the company for almost 3 years. And a few things that I really enjoy outside of Shortcut are cycling, comedy, and sushi. And then the other host we have here is Jordan.
Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm head of product. I've been here the same exact amount of time as Sam because we started only a few days away from each other. Very exciting. So almost 3 years, which is like 10 in startup years. And I love cats and I love to read and new hobby, pickleball. I'm obsessed with it. Literally can't get enough. So that's me.
Awesome. I considered adding dogs, but then I thought the juxtaposition, I don't know.
Cats, dogs.
Cats and dogs. Awesome. All right. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the roadmap feature in Shortcut, and I'll walk you all through the feature. But before we get into that, I want to talk through the different sections of this webinar and what we're going to be covering. So I'll share all of you the roadmap, and then we'll take a poll. And then Jordan will be covering a roadmap lifecycle, best practices, and a few sneak peeks of what we'll be sharing to, or what we'll be shipping to Shortcut. And then we'll have a Q&A section, definitely time to talk through any questions that y'all have with this group. And feel free to ask questions in the Q&A as we go through. We can talk through them live or during the Q&A portion. We also have some resources linked that you can access throughout the webinar. All right.
And all those controls should be at the bottom of your Zoom. You should see one that says Q&A. You should see one that says resources. And there's also the chat. So feel free to participate there as well.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to go over to my Shortcut demo space. Can we all see this view? Excellent. Okay. So this is the roadmap page feature in Shortcut. There's two views. There's the curated roadmap view, which is where we'll focus most of our time in talking about it. And then we also have a timeline Gantt chart view that I'll also cover. But first, with the curated view, this view enables you to curate and show the specific projects that you want your stakeholders to be able to have full visibility into its status, meaning that you actually decide which epics are added to each team's roadmap, and you can also sort them. You can do so by adding any epic to your team's roadmap section via the dropdown, like so. And so, for example, this epic is in progress, and I want to give more visibility into this project. So when folks go to the roadmap view, they can see, okay, under the core team, we're looking at advanced objectives reporting. You can also update the health of these epics in line. So I want to say that this epic is on track. It's already in progress. This epic is in progress. Or any other context you'd want to share, maybe a little more detail, especially if you wanted to indicate at risk or on track. So that way your stakeholders can see what's going on with your projects and development. And then you'll notice that that latest health update shows up in the next column in this view. A few other things that we've included in this table that might be important for your stakeholders when they want to check in on the status of the work happening in Shortcut, like a target date, any objectives that your epics are linked to, and then how many comments, etc. You can further curate this view by changing the actual columns that are shown on the roadmap page and toggle them on and off, just like your other table views in Shortcut. You can also filter by specific team. You can filter on the health. So let's say you wanted to just focus on projects that were at risk. You could do so in a meeting. You can also filter by epic state. So let's say you had one session where you wanted to review projects that were in our backlog or in discovery phase that you want to do, that you want to discuss and zero in on. And then perhaps in another context, you want to just focus on the projects that are in development and make sure everyone's aligned on the status of those projects. One other thing to call out is if you haven't visited this page for your team, you'll want to make sure you add epics to your team section so that way you can create that view. Because it's curated and we're giving you the ability to determine which epics are shown, you have to go in and add those so everyone can see which epics you want them to be able to zero in on in the roadmap view. So that's the curated roadmap. Then we also have a timeline Gantt chart view. If you have epics that with a start and end date that you want to view in this timeline format, you can do so. You can also show the objectives that these epics are a part of, grouping your epics by each objective. You can even collapse them so you just focus on your company's initiatives. Re-expand to see all of the work that's contributing to those goals, along with the timelines for each. You can also filter on this view by certain epic parameters like epic team, owner, labels. You can also filter on objectives and categories. One other call out for both of these views is that we have enabled ways to share them easily to folks outside of Shortcut. You can share via PNG, make sure you enter your start and end dates. And same with your curated view. If you want to share a preview, you can copy paste or download straight from Shortcut. So that's our roadmap feature. With that, let's go over and take a poll. And I'll also use this moment to hand it off to Jordan. So the poll is, what's the biggest gap in your road mapping process? You should see the poll visible. So go ahead and share your answers, and then Jordan, I'll let you share screen.
No, sure. And, all of these feel important. What is the most recent thing or something that comes to mind? For us, definitely. I would say it's probably everything feels important, small team and trying to determine which things will be most impactful. So we've been doing a lot of work on our process to weigh those trade-offs and kind of figure out what to start with. All right.
I'll share results in just a moment. Okay. Ending poll now. And the results.
Awesome. All right. It looks like 50% of folks have difficulty keeping status and progress up to date. We got some best practices for y'all there, and we have some sneak peeks of things that can make that easier. Definitely one of the hardest things, even though it seems simple. It does take time, and we want to alleviate as much of that as possible. All right, I'm going to share my screen. We will hop over into all right. Let me slideshow. Wow. It's huge. We're here. All right. So let's kick off discussing the life cycle of your roadmap. So right here, what you see, this is the process that we use at Shortcut. And just to be totally transparent, I'm sure you can relate, we've tried a bunch of different methods in creating a roadmap, a bunch of nuances of the same thing. And some things that are quite different. It's always kind of ended up as in a roadmap that's a little bit unbalanced. So whether it's not enough focus on resolving technical debt or not enough focus on customer ask because we sunk ourselves into large projects and we weren't able to be reactive enough to those smaller requests. So we recently, at the end of last year, we set out to make some changes to our progress or our process, sorry. And in our current process, something you might see here is that this life cycle, like the inputs here and the ownership, is beyond just the product org. It's not just the PMs. So you can see labels of PM, EM, product development, or PD and E, which is product design and engineering. That's kind of representative of the whole group or the leads. Within each circle, that is representing the person or persons that drive that portion of the process, but multiple people are involved each step of the way. So we'll dive into that a little bit more soon. We found that a better approach is when we promote the idea that it really is everybody's job at Shortcut to see our customers succeed. So it's really important that we have both engagement and accountability coming from all of these leads. As we go through the next sections, I'm going to zoom in on each one of these next steps. All right, and we'll start here. So let's begin setting some goals, defining our problems to solve, and then prioritizing those solutions for the problems. So first, we have to set or reflect on current business goals or objectives. This might seem really obvious, but similar to jumping to a solution before defining the problem, it's really tempting to just sort of start creating a roadmap without making sure you have a specific goal or goals for the business and the product, and kind of knee-jerking in a bunch of different directions if you aren't settled in on, we've all agreed that these goals are the most important. At Shortcut, we use an OKR structure because it's just been the best way to set goals and then define those tactics or those epics to achieve those goals. If you're using a different goal setting framework, that's totally fine, as long as you have something that's thematic. So you have those thematic intentions, sort of like an objective, paired with specific measurable outcomes that you desire. Those are really, doesn't matter what you want to call it, those are required for setting your goals. Another thing to define at this step are the value streams that you'll focus on to get to your goals. So value streams are a way to categorize problems that users are facing. An example internally, right now, we currently have a value stream called Team Stand-Up. And that's to better support the ubiquitous stand-up or team sync processes that our teams execute daily, a few times a week, etc. This is related to our goals around weekly active users and the overall health signals of our product. Your product leads will tend to drive this process. However, go-to-market leads should all be proposing and creating and owning key results for your objectives or specific metrics for your objectives. Again, accountability going across the org. Everybody gets bought in. Everybody feels like it's their responsibility. The second piece here, you'll work together as a product dev leads, like product design and engineering, and incredibly important input from your customer experience team, your support teams, etc. This is where all the fun stuff comes in. So you're going to gather up your critical problems to solve, gather up the supporting evidence. How many Zendesk tickets have we gotten that are related to people asking for subtasks? Like all of this is part of this process. You're going to try to glean really early, rough ideas of impact and effort for each problem. And if we don't know enough, that's fine. You schedule some investigative spikes on the technical side, or maybe we're doing a little bit more user research to find out more and figure out what is the right solution for this problem. To quantify impact and effort, you can use custom calculation. You can use a simple RICE score, or even just like impact effort comparison if you are at a really small organization and that view isn't too overwhelming. I've tried all of these, honestly. It's really fun to make that custom calculator, but you end up overriding things anyways. Or basic RICE or ICE score tends to be the fastest way to get to this confident prioritization. And then from there, you're just going to map out the order of this vision. So what's the best path towards it? And that answer is going to be different depending on your company size, your team sizes, other work that's currently in progress. There's a lot of factors. There isn't really a perfect answer or path. And this path is going to flex and change over time. We'll talk more about that later. But as we work in a continuous learning loop, we're always learning new things that impact the roadmap. So don't consider it set in stone. It really isn't, but it is a place to all rally behind and get started. So let's hop into, yes, shortcut worked. Okay, let's hop into the tool and do a little demo. So as you can see here, we have set two strategic objectives for our business level goals. And as a reminder, a strategic objective is one that contains key results, and those key results and the objective itself can be related to epics or tactical work to get it done. Tactical objectives just hold epics. So when we're setting our goals, we want this thematic idea, and then we want these specific measurable key results here as well. We have these two business level goals, and each has a few key results to drive that goal. And then if we hop over into the roadmap, all right, so here is where at this early phase, or the sort of like larger vision, quarterly planning, or how, whatever cadence you do, your larger planning on, we at Shortcut create a team that's product development just for this overall roadmap that spans all work in progress and upcoming priorities. And we use this to weigh out what we want to do next. At this early identification of problems and priorities phase, it's really nice to see everything in just like one group and not by team quite yet. We'll get there. So within this overall roadmap, you're going to see epics that account for various problems to solve. Maybe they're really early ideas. Maybe it's solutions that we've already defined, but we haven't built yet, or just things that have been sitting in the backlog. Maybe they're new, maybe they're very old. And the columns here that we tend to refer to in this phase are most interested in this early phase. We want to see state. So we want to see, has any progress been made on this, or has it been sitting in the backlog? Is it ready to do? We've got a little bit of work. Any objectives and key results that it's related to. This is a really easy indicator. If there are pieces of work on here that aren't related to any company goal, it's a really good discussion point. That might mean your goals aren't capturing the full breadth of what you want to get done, but it also might mean, oh, maybe this just actually isn't quite the priority for this planning process. We use labels, epic labels, for value streams. So here we've got platform health, onboarding, team workflows. You can have multiple value streams attached to your epics or your solutions. We use the docs thing here to account for any documentation that will help you understand the scope of this problem and the solution, things that we already know about it. And then we use epic comments at this really early stage to mark down some like technical call outs, some feasibility things. And that's just like with the engineering input on like t-shirt sizing of how big something is, it's also like a call out about effort. So based on all this information of impact and effort, your PDE group will meet, discuss the supporting evidence. You're going to vote, you're going to make some final prioritization decisions, and product is ultimately accountable for ensuring that a roadmap is created and ready to act upon and start the delivery process. So let's hop back in here. All right, on to delivery. So this is how you're going to chart your course through development into delivery to your users. And something that you'll notice here is that we found that we work best when our EMs or our development teams are driving and accountable for this part of the loop. This doesn't mean that product or design, CX, go-to-market aren't involved or responsible in any way. They're definitely involved for working with the engineers, answering questions about scope along the way, making negotiations and trade-offs about scope when we learn new things, determining the right release phases. But our engineering managers or your technical leads, your teams are best equipped to schedule roadmap work into their work streams and decide how best to deliver it. They drive this delivery. This is going to make sure that they are in the driver's seat and they are providing status updates on a regular basis because they're accountable for it. And you might see that you might get some more accurate timeline and delivery because they're really involved in their own delivery process instead of having product or another organization in charge of that, driving it for them. So we hop back over here into the roadmap. Once we get to the delivery phase, this is where more folks are going to get involved in the roadmap and viewing it, both maintaining it, viewing it on a regular basis from our overall roadmap, so our product development roadmap, The teams are going to pull things into their own roadmap. So let's open up some of these teams. Very cool. And as you can see here, these are like much smaller scopes. And what we like to focus on here on the team roadmaps or these delivery roadmaps is current work in progress and on deck items. So the list remains really small and focused. It's easy to not make guarantees or promises too far in advance and really swarm around the current efforts and get them out the door. And so we don't have things that are sort of like dragging along for many months because they're just hanging out on the roadmap. And also at this phase, we tend to filter out anything that's in the done phase, just because we want a like even more focused view on what the team is working on right at that moment. And in terms of the columns, like what we're looking to see when we are checking status, we'll keep state on. We like to look at progress, target date, tend to turn off objectives and key results at this moment, not because it's not important, but there's other views that you can track that in. We want to look at health and the latest health update for that skimmable view. You can turn on teams if you want. Often there are multiple teams working on a single epic, depending on how your process is. So that can be helpful if you have two teams working on the same thing. Keeping the labels on is often a really quick like reminder of the why or the value stream that something's delivering towards. We tend to keep start date off because it's just not as important when we have this like really focused view, but we do keep the target date on. And then I tend to turn off docs and epic comments just to keep things really focused in on state, progress, target, health, and making sure that those stay up to date. So keeping those up to date and in line next to this work, it's a really nice digestible format for stakeholder communication and async communication. So when you have your synchronous meetings, if somebody misses it, they can go in here and they can review this and understand, is everything on track? Is it not? And then they can follow up instead of having to ask about status. And like Sam showed, you can toggle over to the timeline view and get that nice visual. Another reminder, you can export it. You can export this and the table view if you want to toss it into a deck, something like that. You can filter things down much more specifically here as well. And you've got a couple other options visually. I'm partial to list view myself, just easier to digest, but there's definitely a time and place for that nice traditional roadmap view. Toss it into a deck. Wow, everybody. So awesome. All right, let's head back over. So in our last phase, learning and impact. So once we have delivered work to the final set of users, how does your roadmap change after you've released things? So once work is delivered to the end user, you're in a learning phase. As PDE leads, so product development or design and engineers, you'll begin to track impact to your users. So you'll dive into the behavior, the usage, engagement, adoption. What were the goals that you set for those? Are you meeting those goals? What's going on? Impact to your platform. So the Eng side will typically start tracking, monitoring latencies, errors, anything new, anything that we want to address, anything that this build is now impacting something else that we couldn't have foreseen prior to building and releasing it. And then impact to the business, obviously. Have these tactics progressed you towards your key result targets? So this is where it circles back and it's really related to your objectives and your key result, your business goals. You'll want to retro with your team. You want to reflect on what you learned through delivery and release. And then you want to set next objectives and goals to inform your roadmap. And the cycle continues. So here, work that's released to the end user has entered that learning status. So we use an epic status for learning. It remains there and on the roadmap until we've retroed on it as a group and learned enough about impact. Depending on the release, enough might be a week because it's like a quick change that we meant to have in there previously, or it could be a couple months if it's a brand new feature. In terms of removing it from the roadmap and keeping things, again, focused and very clean there, we tend to remove from the roadmap on a quarterly basis to align with our own planning. That's totally up to you. Whatever basis feels the best for you. Sometimes it's really nice to have that full year view of like, here's everything that we delivered. And then you're going to set new goals. We use what we've learned to set new goals. Maybe it's iterative goals, iterating. Yay, awesome. We grew weekly active users by 10%. Let's try 15 this quarter. Or maybe it's like moving in a different direction because you learned that this was not delivering on your original goal, and maybe it wasn't having the intended effect. So it's going to all inform your next priorities and determine how the roadmap flexes and shifts. So the cycle is constantly in motion, and you're always in a different portion of it depending on the release. All right, and so whoa. Shh, you didn't see those sneak peeks yet. I'm not ready. So best practices. As a recap, here are some best practices to remember. There is best practices listed in the resources as well, so take a look there if you want to review that later. If you start here and show up with consistency just with these best practices, as a group, you're already out of the pack. Like some of these things, sometimes it's the simplest things that are the hardest to like show up with consistency as a team. But if you just start here, you're really going to you're going to know a lot more, and you're going to have fewer conversations that are just constant status sharing about what's in progress. So first thing, always start with setting or reviewing your current business goals so everyone's working from that same orientation. Don't get yourself blocked here before you can even begin, though. If your current goals are more thematic and they're kind of lacking measurable targets, or maybe you don't yet have instrumentation or mechanics to measure impact, data side is hard for everybody. It's a lot of work. That's okay. This process is continuous, so just get some ways to measure your progress implemented and keep working. So implementing those instrumentation can go through that same exact process on your roadmap. Creation of your roadmap. Start curating your list of deliverables to get you to your goals. Product design and eng should be involved to weigh impact and effort of a deliverable, but don't overcomplicate it. Price scoring is fine. Connect priority epics or pieces of work to your goals, to your objectives, and your key results that they impact. And oh my God, I'm sorry. And then a tip, execute roadmap creation on a quarterly or semi-annual basis. Make sure that it's a long enough time horizon where you can truly do your planning, get some work done, and start to measure impact. Quarterly can even be difficult. So semi-annual, every 6 months is a good basis as well, depending on the way that your team functions. And then also remember, roadmap's not set in stone. It's going to flex and shift as you continuously measure impact and you learn and you progress towards your targets. Okay, consistent updates. This is what 50% of us have trouble with. This is hard, not because it's hard, but because you have to show up consistently, and sometimes it's just easy to forget when you're in delivery mode and you're just like in the weeds. But you're going to save yourself a lot of redundant conversation and miscommunication if the org or the group of stakeholders agree together to utilize a recurring asynchronous and synchronous update for status. So as an Epic owner or a team lead, maybe an eng manager, keeping the health or target dates regularly updated to align with that recurring status share is super helpful. A tip here, set a recurring Slack reminder for folks to make that update. So on the async side, as long as you're keeping that updated, anyone can see it and they'll be updated too. And in terms of synchronous communication, I know meetings are hard. We already have lots of meetings, but I swear if you just spend 15, 20 minutes bi-weekly even, this is going to make a difference. It's a channel, it's a venue to meet with those team leads, the EMs, the PMs, tech leads, stakeholders. At Shortcut, we actually just invite everybody so everybody can stay in the loop and ask questions there. We have a really small org, so your mileage may vary. If you have a larger org, maybe you have a couple different groups. It doesn't have to be long, like I said, 20 minutes at the most, and run the meeting with the format where at the top of the call, you kind of give everybody a few minutes to look over the delivery roadmaps and digest those health updates, then open the floor for questions. And this format kind of reduces that urge to recap every single detail and only focuses on those notable and important updates. And another thing that just removes any sort of friction, share a link to the roadmap that's filtered the way that you want people to look at it, and have everybody bookmark it, just bookmark it in your Slack channel, or everybody shares the same bookmark, so everybody's just looking at the same exact view. Again, the goal here is to reduce the amount of admin or busy work. I mean, this work is really important, but it isn't as strategic or creative, and your time is best spent on other things. So reduce the amount of time spent in status share style conversations, and it's going to leave more space for those creative and strategic discussions. And then finally, at the end here, retros and reflection. Really easy to just skip this and move on, especially if it's like a larger project. But at the end of a major release, this doesn't need to be a full general audience release. It could just be when you open it up to internal, or you have a percentage rollout or an early access program. You want to retro and reflect with your team. Your PDE lead should begin measuring impact to the platform and monitoring for new latencies and errors. You're going to track usage and adoption, and most importantly, track impact to the business goals that the work was meant to support. Once this retro and reflection has occurred, this might be a couple months after, again, feel free to clear that epic out from your roadmap and keep things really focused. And again, at Shortcut, we do this on a quarterly basis, but we use this to prepare ourselves to prep for more large planning sessions. All right, finally, the sneak peeks, what everybody's been waiting for. All right, before we take questions, and feel free to drop anything in the chat. We'll get any in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll address them. But I just want to go through, give you kind of a peek into our brains right now. Here's some of the exploration for expanding our roadmaps capabilities and support stronger product development lifecycle. So we're really trying to make sure that we are focused on supporting the process of choosing what to build, building it, and then reflecting on that and having it inform the goals. So we want to make sure that the core audience of Shortcut is very happy with the view that they have in Shortcut of what their roadmap is, and also the work that they're doing. So here's some of the exploration, different ways to address the gaps, and the poll kind of previews this. We have these same gaps, and so we have some ideas about collecting ideas and creating an area for discussion about on deck or prioritized items, but not yet scheduled, so like an epic backlog. That's something that we use the epics with no team filter right now on the roadmap, but we'd like to create a more formalized place for that. We want to demonstrate user need and level of impact with something like voting, some very small way to indicate different customers or different users who have asked for these things, or even your stakeholders when you're in your planning process. We want to give a rough idea of level of effort to start with or to help with that prioritization. So I think we have epic sizing on here. And then we want to show you how work is mapped out and connected with dependencies. I know everybody wants this. It's coming, don't worry. And then finally, we want to keep your stakeholders in the loop with Slack status notifications and reminders to your Epic owners and technical leads that are automated, so you don't have to set it up to keep work in progress or keep the progress up to date, as well as sharing out to a channel the most recent health updates so people can kind of see that. Also, we have this concept for a now, next, later. I know that's a really popular way to look at things as well when you're even earlier in the process. So that is something else that we've been experimenting with. So as we begin planning for the end of this year and early 2025, these requests are definitely top of mind, along with some other Slack integration pieces that will help with your overall process. Awesome. Q&A. We are ready. Let me pull my screen back up so I can see.
Great walkthrough, Jordan.
Awesome. Sam, do we have any questions in our Q&A?
I was checking as we were going through different sections, and I don't see anything open. If folks want to drop anything in the chat, we can talk through something live. We also have a link in our resources, which is in your bar of tools, where you can book time with us to have a one-on-one walkthrough. If you have anything specific that you maybe want to chat through in a separate forum, but we'll keep the lines open since we have time if folks have anything they want to share or ask about.
Yeah, even if it's just part of your personal process and you wanna bounce an idea off of us, Happy to do that. Oh, also, I'm gonna find, we have a best practices doc, but I don't know if it made it into our resources. So let me go grab that. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'll toss that into the chat for everyone. Mhm.
Is this recording going to be available after? It will.
Absolutely. Sorry. Yeah.
We're very excited about the questions that get drafted.
No. Last time there was like, we had like 15 questions. I think we made it through most of them. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah, that's why we had to have a follow-up session. So glad we were able to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Any more upcoming webinars? Definitely. Definitely. Oh, also, I think we have a question.
In the Q&A.
Oh, it's just the one in the chat. Yes, we have more webinars coming up. We have bi-weekly support office hours as well. And do you have any suggestions for other webinars? We're always taking suggestions. We'll probably do one related to team workflows once the new stories page is fully out there. And we'll go over things like weekly stand-up, if you run iterations, if you run Kanban, and go over a new feature that is upcoming, work in progress limits, sneak peek for that one as well. So yeah, we have a team oriented one coming up later this fall for sure. We might need to do a couple sessions for that. There's lots of team processes to review, but yeah.
And if you haven't joined already, our community Slack, great place to stay up to date with webinars or even just discussions about features in Shortcut, any questions or even feedback that you have. We're always in there chatting with folks. So definitely join the community if you have not already.
I also see a lot of great discussion between users of different orgs there as well.
Mm.
Riffing on not only like usage of Shortcut, but also just like workflows in their own org. And that's always great to see that activity.
Right. Well, if there are no other questions, thanks everyone for joining. This has been great. Roadmaps and Shortcut.
Is there an integration to Jira? Yes. We have, actually, Sam, you own that area. Why don't you outline our Jira detail?
We do have an integration with Jira for mapping stories. If you want to see issues created in Jira show up in Shortcut, we have an MVP solution for that. We also have an importer as well. Anything else that you had in mind, we'd like to hear as well, because we know that there are a lot of different ways that you can set up a Jira project and a lot of ways that you maybe want to connect that project to Shortcuts so you can utilize all the features in both. And we have one more.
Oh,
Ashley.
congratulations, adopting agile practices for the first time. That's great. Getting started with Shortcut for small teams. That's actually an awesome topic. We talk about it all the time. And we don't think we have, there's a direct article for that. We might have a blog post, but it won't be as comprehensive. Two things here. One, thank you. You just put this on our to-do list. We will create that because we have a lot of opinions about how to like get started, especially at that team size level. And personally, I've been on quite a few teams that are that size, so a lot of ideas, and we use Shortcut at those companies. So we'll start there. And if you would like to chat with myself or Sam or Dan about this and just like jump on a call, we can also, we're totally happy to set that up. So in the resources tab, you can set up a call with Dan or just reaching out to CS and asking about that, or in the Slack channel. Very happy to discuss that topic. Oh my. All right. Oh, thank you.
Offer makes sense. All right. Awesome.
Well, I think we can wrap it, but everybody feel free to reach out. Many channels to get us. You can find us on Slack. You can find us an email. Find us through the resources tab. So appreciate your time today. And the email with the recording will go out soon. And we'll also get that best practices article out to everyone as well.
Thanks, y'all.
Hey, thanks everybody. Bye.